Maintenance mistakes. Now I'm pretty sure that most of us have made one or two along the journey of our cycling path, but here are 5 that you definitely need to avoid. A worn out rear tyre? Just swap it over with the front, it'll be alright. No, do not do that, and I'm sure that plenty of us out there have in fact done that. Admittedly, it is okay to put a slightly worn front tyre onto the rear, but the other way round, no, you don't want to do that, because one of the reasons is confidence, and by putting a worn rear tyre on the front, that could have quite drastic effects, to be perfectly honest, because generally they tend to square off at the top, and in turn that's not going to give you great handling, so your cornering is going to be really compromised. And then another reason behind that is actually the safety aspect, because a worn tyre essentially is going to be more susceptible to a blowout. Nobody wants a blowout, do they? So having actually a really good tyre on the back is just as important as the front, but in any case, the front is definitely more worthwhile. The reason being, if you have a blowout on the back, it's easier to control, but a blowout on the front, that's not so easy to control. So having a really good tyre on the front is definitely important. It'll be all right, just fit the bolt. No, don't just fit the bolt. Now, there are all sorts of different greases and compounds that are used on different bolts and threads on bikes, and for very good reason. Now, I'm not going to go into the long and nitty-gritty of each and every single component and what you should use because, well, it's not actually quite so straightforward, because some manufacturers recommend thread lock on one component, whereas the exact same component from another manufacturer will recommend using grease. So if in doubt, actually consult the manufacturer. But generally, as a rule of thumb, personally, I would always put grease on something if I was unsure. The reason being, the thought of something basically rusting into place on a bike with a tiny little fragile head for a socket kind of fills me with a little bit of fear. So I always tend to use a little bit of grease for that very reason. And also, back when I was about 13 or 14 years old, a local frame builder spoke to me and told me to re-grease bolts every 3 or 4 months. The reason being, further on down the line, it's going to be easier to remove that part. And yeah, they always have been. Now, particular areas that do suffer from real severe bouts of corrosion in some cases are bottom bracket cable guides, so the one that goes right underneath the little screw. Those can be an absolute pain to get out if they're not lubricated or greased correctly. And also cleat screws. The number of people's shoes I've seen with cleat screws that are totally rusted in place, well, I couldn't tell you how many. It's been literally dozens. So make sure you certainly use those. And also just grease your bolts. A bit more. Oh no. Yeah, that's right. Over tightening or over torquing bolts has to be one of the most popular mistakes for people to make. It's easy to think they're not done up tight enough, when in actual fact they are. So if there's any bit of advice I could give you, is get yourself a reliable torque wrench. Therefore, you're going to take out any of the guesswork. Now, rounding off a bolt head isn't necessarily that common on something like this size because it is pretty big, but stripping a thread, yeah, that does happen to the best of us. Not so much anymore though. Anyway, but why do you really want to pay close attention to this? Well, you don't want to destroy any of your components. After all, if you strip a thread in here, it's likely you're also going to have crushed your carbon fibre steerer tube too, which is never going to be good news. Now, stem bolts, they are a really common area for people to over tighten and destroy a component or two in the worst case, as well as this seat post clamp here, because no one wants a seat post to drop down. So really do pay close attention to it, and if needed, use fibre paste if you've got carbon fibre components. I'll clean it later. Will you really? Be honest. Now, personally, I quite enjoy cleaning bikes, but I know that plenty of people out there really do not enjoy it. And well, yeah, sometimes it can take quite a while, especially if it's absolutely filthy. But if there's one area of the bike which I really do recommend keeping nice and clean, it is your drivetrain. Because if you don't, ultimately, you will be let down at some point by your bike. And probably when you're in the middle of nowhere with no mobile phone signal, no spare inner tubes, no chain tool, nothing like that. And yeah, could well be your drivetrain to blame. So what are we going to do then? Well, use some degreaser. It's the simplest thing to do. Just use it and rinse it off and re-lubricate your chain. If you don't, well, all of the gunk and grime that accumulates on the links of the chain, eventually it's going to wear out your cassette, your pulley wheels, your chain rings, and ultimately land you with a hefty repair bill. So for the sake of 5 minutes, giving it a simple degrease, probably less than 5 minutes, it's going to save you money. They don't do anything. Really. I'm going to let you into a little bit of a story here. So years and years ago, back in the UK, we used to actually have to have our bikes checked before we did a race to make sure they were safe and the tyres were glued on correctly, that sort of thing. Now, one of the items that was required on a bike was bar end plugs, because if not, you'd actually fail the test to be able to race. Now, lots of people out there think they're just for aesthetic reasons, but they're not. They're actually there for a really, really, really important safety reason. Now, excuse the graphic description here, but if you weren't to have one, and if you were to crash and land awkwardly or in the wrong place on that bar end, well, it's going to act like a giant hole punch, which could quite literally be fatal. And that, to this day, actually still really does haunt me, the thought that the damage this part of a bike could in fact do if it was missing. So if there's anything you do take away from this video, it is please make sure you have got bar end plugs installed. Now, if you find they keep falling out or something like that, then wrap them in masking tape or painter's tape, you could well call it, and put them in there. That painter's tape is really pliable and it's going to basically form around the bar tape that's inside of the end of the handlebar, and it will stay in place. So make sure you do it, please, everybody out there. Now, I hope that these 5 little maintenance mistakes that I do see pretty often are none of yours. However, if you make maintenance mistakes or know someone who does, leave me their problems that they make down there in the comment section. Who knows, maybe it'll make it into a future video. Also, anyone who you know who makes any of these mistakes, share this video with them so they can solve them themselves. Now, as ever, remember to like and share this video with your friends, give it a thumbs up, and also, why not check out the GCN shop at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com, where we have a whole heap of goodies for you to check out. And now, for the latest GCN tech show, how about clicking just over here?